Well, this is gonna be interesting. Hi guys, Matt the Editor here, and welcome to the final edition of Doctor Who Series 12 Who Editor Reviews. This week, it's the series finale, The Timeless Children, by Chris Chibnall. Now, since Series 12 started, it felt like the show was going into a direction which I think Series 11 failed at. However, that's not to say this series was perfect. Spyfall Part 1 I thought was a good Kickstarter, while Part 2 was a little divisive. Orphan 55 was a complete mess that tried way too hard to be important. Nikola Tesla I thought was a decent historical story. Fugitive of the Jadoon, I'll admit, was fun, but it did have a lot of Easter eggs or stuff to look out for in the future stories. Praxeus I thought was a well-crafted story. Can You Hear Me could have worked if done better, but when Haunting of Villa Diodati happened, it felt like the show was going back on track. And Ascension of the Cybermen last week did give us a decent setup, but it could still lead to an open-ended or unanswered complicated mess of a finale. And now we've made it. The Series 12 finale. The moment we have all been waiting for since the Ghost Monument in Series 11. We finally figure out who the Timeless Child is, which honestly I don't think it really is that of a surprise. Now I will admit there were some stuff which myself and other people theorized was going to happen, which did lead me feel not at all hyped or excited for the story in general. But this episode, wow! There is quite a lot of stuff to get through, and I don't want to go too overboard with what I want to talk about. So I'll do a quick run through of the performances of the main cast first, just to get out of the way. The performances are fantastic. Jodie Whittaker is on fire with the role she is given now, and from where the Doctor is going in terms of the Time Lord's history, the Timeless Child, or probably to wherever next, I think this is the best we have seen of this Doctor. I felt like she has reached her hero's journey. The TARDIS team are all good. I felt like they all reached their points. The acid scenes where she's basically taken on the role of the Doctor, I thought were good. Graham's chat with Yasmin I thought was beautiful. Ryan, I think, has conquered his dyspraxia when he kicked over the ball. I thought that was pretty good. However, I did feel like those lines that they were given did not seem to work fully for me, because it's nothing but short lines without actually taking the time to fully embrace this feeling that this could be their last hurrah. Especially for Ryan and Graham, since we just found out that they're going to leave after the Christmas special. It was there, but I felt like it could have gone bigger. Sacha Darwin as the Master is having a ball. A nice blend of Sim, Ricardo and Ainley together. Three of my favourite Masters together. I did feel like how his Master fits into the whole Timeless Child story, and why would he even care about it concerning the Doctor? The Cybermen, I will admit, were a little underused. For the majority of the episode, it felt like neither stories collided with each other, or at least fitted together. Much like Spyfall Part 2 and elements of Fugitive of the Jadoon, it felt like two separate stories forced together without even balancing each other right. Whenever a scene with the origins of the Time Lords came up, I was interested, thus making me dread whenever the Cyberman plot comes back. And that shouldn't be the case, because I love the Cybermen. But that being said, I did think their relevance or inclusion of the story was well handled, particularly in the second half. They did seem to fit in well together. And I called it! Didn't I call it? I knew the Timeless Children was going to have Time Lord Cybermen. And I was annoyed at that point. But the instant I saw these Cybermen bodies wearing the long cloaks with the Time Lord collars, I immediately laughed with excitement. That was amazing. This is a genius idea, and I now want to buy a Cyber Warrior and a Cyber Time Lord action figure now. I do think they did not need to include the surviving humans, especially since the pointless character from the last episode I mentioned just died in the opening 5 minutes, and no one seemed to have mourned her or cared about her from that point onwards. But for now, what they did with them I thought was fine. I like the idea of them hiding in Cybermen bodies, which, fans of the classic series, did any of this happen in the classic series? We have humans disguised as Daleks, but aside from Rose and Pete acting like they were mind-controlled by the Cybermen in the Age of Steel, I don't recall having humans disguised as Cybermen. And it did lead to a chilling moment where they were hiding in the suits with Ashard, the lone Cyberman, patrolling the row and even sniffing out for their breath. That was a chilling moment. I will admit in the end the lone Cyberman was a mixed opportunity. Aside from a few chilling moments, and I was infested with the Master's interrogation scenes, I did like how this energy in his chest is like a detonation device set to blow up any organic life forms on the planet that it's standing on, which did lead to the downfall of the Cyber Time Lords and Gallifrey in general. But I will admit, for an awesome film we've had, he kind of got an underwhelming defeat by having the Master shrink him into a toy. I do like how it fits with Spyfall, but I do think this villain deserved a lot of respect for his defeat. I will admit I think there are some answers left to be answered, particularly from where this lone Cyberman came from, but you know what? I don't care. Sometimes there are some answers that were not meant to be answered, and just left to the audience's imagination. Kosham was an entertaining character. I am kind of glad that he is not a renegade Time Lord or even Rassilon after Hellbend, but I did like his scenes with Ryan and Ethan. You can see that he has had experiences in the Cyber Wars, but he's gotten so used to it that he's kind of having fun with Ryan, Ethan and the TARDIS team around. I'll admit I did see his death coming, but I did like how, since he was part of the resistance that started the Cyber Wars, it is he who should stop it. I did think that moment was earned, and I did feel kind of bad when he died. Now let's talk about the Timeless Child. Well, basically, the origins of the Doctor. Now, I will admit this is really not a surprise coming. It was kind of obvious from the Ghost Monument, but how it was played into the whole Time Lords history, honestly, as an origin story of the Time Lords, I think this was actually not a bad one. I do feel like the original Time Lords, who are hypocritical at anything, would start off from something like this. I will admit I was a little nervous that maybe the name of the Timeless Child, or the name of that scientist, whatever her name was, who found the Timeless Child, was going to be the name of the Doctor, thus ending the show for me, because, you can't have Doctor Who without Doctor Who. Thankfully, they did not do that, and from the point of the Time Lords becoming real, the time-lapse of the Citadel being built, seeing the Time Lord in the robes walking down the corridor to a very familiar sunlight shot from, I think, Batman March's Effie episode, it does sound a little cheap of how the Doctor is the Timeless Child, meaning he or she has unlimited regeneration cycles, considering how Time Lords had to give him a new regeneration cycle in Time of the Doctor. But I can see this working, seeing as how the BBC are never going to get rid of this show, and the Doctor is going to keep changing into different forms. Sure, the show might get a hiatus at some point, but it's never going to die. Honestly, I don't think it ruined anything for me. Honestly, with the Timeless Child story and where it all fits, I think it was handled pretty well. However, I will admit, looking back, I do not understand how Jack seems to fit into the whole story arc. That was clearly fan service. I didn't mind Joe Martin's Roof Doctor appearing. I felt like this was going to be a scene with the Doctor meeting with the first Doctor, but maybe David Bradley was unavailable, so they got Joe Martin, which honestly I don't mind, because I did enjoy her performance in this episode probably a bit more than I did in Fugitive of the Jadoon. I did enjoy both Doctors' performances in The Matrix. I do also like how they did not answer whether or not she is from the wiped away memories, or whether she is yet to come. Maybe Jodie's Doctor gets her memories wiped again in the future. Plus, it did lead to a good line. Have you ever been limited by who you were before? And Jodie replies saying that, now that does sound like me talking. I can definitely see the Doctor saying any of those lines. And I loved how this conversation did give her the boost to go back to the Doctor I remember, whether it's calculating how to get out of the Matrix whilst talking to herself at the same time. Brilliant! Also, there are so many references to classic and new Who stories. Obvious one where the Master says, for Gallifrey, for the Time Lords, for the end of the universe itself. Obviously a line from the End of Time. Obviously the Matrix gets a return from the Deadly Assassin. The classic TARDISes with their alternate colour schemes and chameleon circuits. I love that. The opening shot of Gallifrey in the origin story, which is very reminiscent of the 1996 movie intro with the planet Scarrow. Even with the sound effects of lasers and explosions, I think I caught a glimpse of classic sound effects. So is this episode good or is it bad? Well, I feel like this episode has drained me of my excitement or skills to do some thinking properly. I want to say that there are definitely bad things, but I cannot help but admit how much fun and excitement I had whilst watching this episode. I would need more time to heal after all of that, but I'm not saying this is the downfall of Doctor Who. Honestly, I feel like this is a massive step up. The performances, top notch. The production work, fantastic. The music, breathtaking. The action, twists and turns, mind blowing. While I would have liked the Doctor's origin story to still be a mystery that should never be solved, I do feel like this is taking the show in a new direction, and I am ready to go down that path. I will admit this episode is a little too long to sift through, and there are some scenes more focused on the Master more than the Doctor or the Cybermen, but once the story kept going with where it was going, it did not bother me in the end. I will admit there are still some plot elements that do not make sense or are really not answered properly, but perhaps those are what we might probably be getting in Series 13. I feel like the show that I loved exploring and experiencing as a kid has come back. Is this the best finale in a while since Parting of the Ways, Doomsday, Stolen Earth, or Big Bang? No. Well, maybe. But it's definitely in one of the top 5's list. I feel like my faith in the show has actually been restored. Is this going to get controversy? Oh, hell yes. It's 2020 and it's the internet. They're going to get controversial about anything these days. But honestly, I don't care. Sure, it may have affected a few plot points in the show's timelines, but I don't mind because of how it was played out, and honestly from what they showed to us, I can see that actually fit into the whole canon of the show. Even the Morbius Doctors the fans were theorizing about, or maybe the Season 6B theory, might have actually happened in the show before the whole mind wipe stuff. The possibilities of the show are endless now. There's more to explore the show. Well played, Mr. Chibnall. Well played. Oh, and that ending. It got me reminiscent of the Russell T Davies era endings, and I love it. I cannot wait for Christmas. So yes, for now, for the time being, I'm going to give this episode 10 out of 10. It does have problems, but then again, so do my other favourite 10 out of 10 stories. But as long as I enjoyed the story and can accept it as part of the Whoniverse, then that is fine by me. So how was this two-part finale overall? Well, Ascension of the Cybermen I thought was a pretty chilling setup with good performances and good action sequences, but I do think it needed a few scenes removed or elements needed improvement. I originally gave it 8.5 out of 10, but after a while I decided to give it 8 out of 10. While The Timeless Children, I feel, has upstaged the previous episode. I feel like the story was flowing perfectly, aside from maybe a few continuity or padding moments, but I still had a great time watching it, so I gave it 10 out of 10. So let's join these scores together. Overall, the Series 12 finale gets 9 out of 10. So now that the series is complete, how does it hold up in comparison to Series 11? Overall, this series has a lot of promise. It got into a proper start with Spyfall and Nikola Tesla, however the series does have a little bumpy, messy ride with Orphan 55, but it does continue on a safe, steady path with Praxis, Fugitive of the Jadoon, and Can You Hear Me? But it could have gone much better, but at least the series managed to make a solid ending, with one or two slight mishaps with The Haunting of Villa Diodati, Ascension of the Cybermen, and The Timeless Children. So here are all my scores for each episode. Calculate them together, we get 73 out of 100. Divide that by 10. So that means Series 12 gets 7 out of 10 from me. So yeah, this is definitely better than Series 11. But that's not to say it's a great season. But I do highly recommend watching it for old fans or new fans. So there we go, that's Series 12. Be sure to leave a comment, like and share this video. If you have seen this episode, what did you think about it? In fact, what did you think of Series 12 overall? And if you'd like to see more of my videos, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to click on the bell to be notified for future videos. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this series, and I'll see you next time.